This is an astrocartography reading for Claudia. Claudia, I put your information in, and we have the map pulled up now to just show geographically how your chart is configured. Well, let's pull up Australia and see the main lines running through. So the lines get repeated around the globe. I'm starting in Australia since that's where you are from. Um, but we're going to see here that there's a few interesting things going on in Australia for you. And I never think it's a coincidence that, you're born where you are. And then I also think if you're drawn to other places, there might be some sort of spiritual guidance or growth wanting to occur in those places. So I think it's really interesting, just this whole concept in general. And I'm just so excited to look at this with you. So when we start, I like to look to just kind of just the same ways I would go about like a chart reading. Like, what are some of the key planetary lines here? Where can we get real representations of those planetary energies? Geographically. It's it's pretty interesting to think that we could go to a certain place and be more in tune with our communication style, like Mercury, or with having more opportunity for spiritual growth, like Neptune. So for you, I see um a key player, I think, for part of your experience here on Earth is wanting to grow into places that you've never experienced before. And I say that because whenever a planet node luminary is touching any of the angle lines, that's always going to be significant. And for you, we have the ascendant line running down through where you were born. That's where you took your first breath. But look, the North Node line crosses it here and then runs all the way down the east coast of Australia and or not the coast, but the eastern region. And so we look at this area up here, and I'm not sure how you would say that. I am not familiar with Australia. Cairns? Carnes? Cairns? I'm not sure. So excuse me for not knowing how to pronounce that. But north of Townsville, we see there's like an intersection almost, and a little bit more north of that is actually a body of water. But we'll treat the lines just like we would orbs. So the tighter they are, the more exact. The more they start venturing out, we have like the orbs to consider of closeness. So here would be an exact 0 degree crossing over. So we would say that here is an experience for you, really powered by destiny. You would be drawn to people or places where you feel like the events that are unfolding around you just have this energy of like it was meant to be, or that it's happened before. Like we're talking like these karmic energies of meeting people who you've never met before. You have no business assuming any type of familiarity with them, but for some reason you do. You feel like people you've met along this line that you've known for a while, or you just can reveal truths to them that you didn't even know about yourself. And I say it that way because I know your North Node is in Scorpio. So a lot of uncovering and digging deeper of who you are and finding deeper truths about yourself would happen along this North Node line. And on the ascendant, it would go back how it relates to you as an individual, how you show up in this world, and the the energy you give out to other people as your own identity. And it would help you even move closer to owning this North Node Scorpion energy into your identity. That's kind of the integration of the ascendant North Node. on this spot, but if let's say that is the ocean, then anywhere around here, this whole like upper right quadrant, this northeastern border of Australia is going to have a similar effect here. The further south you go, the wider the orb. The more northeastern you go, the tighter. So I don't know how long of a distance that is to where you actually live, but I think it's interesting to take a trip, if you can ever have the luxury of just going somewhere or spending some time, because the North Node situation is something that usually you want to spend some time because you're trying to slowly become comfortable with the unfamiliar. And that's not something that you would necessarily like vacation to, really. It's not the same energy. It's more of learning lessons and taking time to learn hidden truths about yourself, which of course doesn't usually happen overnight, but it's feeling like were you called to go somewhere? Were you like, did you see something or hear something? Did you have an opportunity there that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's like a gut feeling that you should pursue it? Is it going to be something that you kind of have to let go of your safety net or your go-to type of everyday structured life to kind of just take on this other role that seems kind of foreign. Like that's the energy of the North Node. It's not familiar. It doesn't always feel safe, but for some reason I feel like it's pulling me. And if I do it, I'm going to learn something about myself and I might just like grow. And that would be the point of that. It's not always a fun feeling for Scorpio North nodes because a lot of the growth through that is embodying this transformation. And transformations aren't always painless, right? Sometimes we grow through discomfort. We're not willing to change anything until it hurts us enough to actually do that and take on that metamorphosis. The process itself is not always a fun one. So that's something to keep in mind anywhere you're going to be on your North Node line is you might come to greatness in that, and not monetarily, but within yourself. Eventually on that line, you might really feel like you did it. Like you reached this evolved version that you were really hoping to, whether you or not you even knew it. And in Scorpio, maybe you were witness to some cycles of life and death, whether it be symbolic or actual. Um, and now you're a changed person. So it's like life-changing stuff on this line. And sometimes that gives the Scorpio energy of coming out a wiser person because of it. And that's usually some type of, real like life cycle stuff going on. So it can be a heavier line because there's no escaping the realness, the trenches sometimes that you have to be in to come out on the other side. So just be mindful of that line. It could be life-changing, it could be profound, but it's not always comfortable. North Node stuff isn't always comfortable, but it's really like evolving the spirit energy. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on that because I feel like that's the one that really jumps out to me as far as your situation in where I think you could maybe be going, or if you have a history there. Then we move over here to some other lines, and in the western side of Australia, I don't know if Perth is how you say that. Um, this is your Neptunian line here. So anywhere along the path here, you're going to be called to experience some type of spiritual. This would be like a planning for a spiritual retreat. Somewhere over here would be a good one. It can bring you closer to your spiritual side. This is a line that you want to avoid for any kind of work or business ventures. This is sometimes not the best line for relationships. It can be confusion. This is the line of details don't matter. I'm here for something bigger than that. And I'm trying to have a spiritual connection. If you're trying to work on like psychic gifts, if there was ever type of a psychic camp or spiritual festival or spiritual retreat anywhere along here, that would be really great for opening up that sixth sense and connecting to any type of mediumships if you're trying to reach out onto like another plane. The Neptune line is really great for that. It's not about structure and it's not about the corporate world. It is the 180 of that. Your Uranus line is really tight and then conjuncts to your Mercury line here, running a little east of your Neptune line. So, if Albany is a place you are interested in going, I would say you would experience a really heightened mental state here. So, I would say for somebody that lived with this chart in Albany, I would expect things like sudden inspired ideas, maybe like this stroke of genius there, this real potential for higher level intellectual work. I would expect somebody maybe to have disruptions in their like nervous system, some type of like overdrive, maybe coming through like periods of high anxiety in this area or like insomnia the highest. So Mercury and Uranus are related in that Uranus is kind of like the higher expression of Mercury. So you're already having this higher charged energy, and now it's touching the inner planet that is you of that same energy. So you're having all systems go in this. The outer and the inner are working here together in this intellectual, communicative, idea throwing like using all of your mental capacity at any point. So, for you being a native Capricorn Mercury and Capricorn Uranus, there could be potentials for like self-autonomy here of really trying to make your own way. There could be some periods like loneliness, whether or not loneliness can be a side effect of autonomy. You know, you can be the independent person, but are you so independent that you're closed off and it's you and your thoughts? Or are you really making this like brilliant way for yourself and you're not really needing any kind of dependencies on anyone else to get there. Uranus for me doesn't always feel like a line that I want to be on for like a really long time because you're attracting, you know, you're like the static electricity to the lightning rod to the storm here. You're kind of sticking out there, daring to be struck, and the chaotic implications could just be going off the rails. And in a Capricorn energy, you know, that's not always the most comfortable place for that energy. So if you were looking for, you know, just this really like genius period, you know, if you're some kind of artist and you just want to have like these being open to just inspired moments, I could see that being a really interesting place. If you're looking to meet unconventional people who you've never experienced and you want to have some real interesting conversations, I could see that being a really interesting place. You know, if you were going to pick a school to go study, or excuse me, it wouldn't be abroad for you, but, you know, to go to college somewhere, that would be, I don't know if you would want to do Uranus and Mercury together for like a real commitment type situation because Uranus can just be such a wild card that to commit to any type of 4-year institution might just not happen. I could see somebody going to school there and it not working out for some like really off the wall reason. But the things that you learn through just your experience there, you know, that would be interesting to be one of the people and just see what you pick up through everyday occurrences in the community, everyday life. I bet that you would have some really interesting experiences and you would come back to wherever you were, just feeling like your mind was blown here and there a few times. So that would be interesting if you can handle the tightness of that situation. I feel like that would be worth exploring. Then, so that's pretty much the ascendant and the MC here. They go back to your where you were born. Um, so in on a standalone, those are just the lines at which we measure the planets where they fall. So those on their own don't really stand out as a significant points. And the sun here is usually where I start to look right away. Just like if I was looking at your birth chart, I would say, what's your sun doing? That's the path we follow to feel aligned. It is our vitality. The more we mature, the more we embody this energy. So for you, that sun is going through here. I'm not familiar with these areas either. I don't know if that's a place that you would go visit. But we curve, right? Because the globe is not flat. So the lines, how the planets, how we orbit, how the planets cycle, it becomes elliptical and curved. So if you follow the lines, you wind up going many places. A lot of it is uninhabitable. But I'm trying to see on the outskirts here what some other lines are doing in case there are places you would go to. So Jupiter's a fun one because wherever we are with Jupiter, we like to make it bigger. So you're talking about really out of conceivable understandings or expectations, bigger than what you expected to go on here, and usually in a beneficial way. So, take chances here. Go for it and don't really have a solid plan. See what happens. Where can you take chances? So, Jupiter is touching what I believe is New Zealand here. And forgive me for being an American that doesn't understand a lot of world geography, but it runs right through this, what I believe to be New Zealand. And that would be, and look how it's the only line that does. This line here, I think is an indicator that that's more of an icy line. Let's take away some of the other ones. So if I'm talking your descendant line, we're just starting to get really particular here. It's not super mandatory. Okay, so that's your IC line and your MC. And your ascendant rolls through here. Okay, so you're looking more at your IC MC line because those are always the longitudinal lines. So why is that important? Well, it's just saying to me like, okay, well, what part, like if I'm still looking at your chart, what quadrant or hemisphere is this to you, your experience? And so for you, it looks like your MCIC line. And so that's more of personal at home feelings within yourself and actually, and then your public standings, reputations, and career aspirations. So it's not so much about personality as ascendant is, or partnership as descendant is. It's about the lines of our private life and our public life. And it's just the line here is going right through. So this would just be a an interesting time for you to expand on your career ambitions or your ability to make your own way and make a name for yourself. Having luck in any type of like career ambitions and home ambitions as well. It looks like you could even, you know, own own something here, get more than you thought you would here. Jupiter's all about more than what we expected. So if you follow this line, it's really talking about all good things. You can take chances, you can go for it, and all the way to, unfortunately, it's a lot of water, so you're obviously not going to live there. But if you haven't been over here, that's a fun place to try. Jupiter is, sometimes it's like be cautious as far as like being too trusting or too giving. There can be a bit of being naive with the Jupiter line because there's so much, it feels like so much good fortune that it's hard to then think that you have anything to worry about. But then you can become a little bit naive, or the ego can get too strong because you just become really reliant on like this good vibes things, and like, you know, it's hard for you to stay humble in that. So those would be the warnings there on your Jupiter line, is you want to maintain a level of humility and real reality, a little bit of realism. You want to make sure that you're not being overly generous to all of those. If you would want to sustain something like this, then you would want to make sure that you can somehow moderate what you're doing. But the overall vibes are of like life is good, let's live it up here on this line. So what I'm not seeing is your Venus line showing up over here. So we gotta find it. Oh wait, there it is. Excuse me, I see it now. So Venus is our little blue line friend here, which is we talk about love and partnerships, just a feeling of harmony. That's going to be a fun place to vacation. Um, it could be a fun place to meet people and learn about how you are in partnerships. But it's really about finding like peace and harmony, feeling that sense of serenity somewhere, just like enjoying the ease of being. So we go all the way up through here. I don't know if that's somewhere that you would visit. And then there's a little island over here it touches. But remember, just like planets, the orbs they can be wider. So it could be a few of these islands. But this one right here, if you're ever able to go to that one, that might be a fun place to book like a romantic vacation. You and whoever would have like an ease there. They say with the Venus line to understand, if you go on the Venus line, that you really do want to enjoy yourself, and there can be discomfort if like you don't have the funds for it. You want to like you really see what is good on your Venus line, so you can become really aware of if like you aren't able to experience that. So you always want to make sure that like you're gonna be able to afford the best version of the Venus line, because you're gonna want it. You're gonna want the luxury of the experience, and you're gonna be very sensitive to all like the aesthetic and um like sensual energies, and you're going to be very aware of like what is the best. You're going to have really exquisite taste in this area. So make sure you can afford the best experience, because that's what you're going to be setting the bar to. So it can be really wonderful, but if you're not money, money matters here. But it could be a blessing of money too. You could find out that maybe things are cheaper than what you thought it would be, or you get a good deal on something, or something comes easy to you. It's a favorable position, but you just want to go into it knowing that I am going to be very sensitive to like the best here. So I want to make sure I can do that for myself. Let's see what line that is. That's the MC line. Okay, so that's your high aspirations line, which would be fun if you can get to that island to see, because then you can really see, like, hey, maybe this is like how the status quo should be in my life. Like this is the good life, and I'm going to aspire to make that a reality for me. If you go up here, you can see your Aquarius, or excuse me, not Aquarius, your Mercury and Uranus lines start to part a little bit up here, but they're still tight. Even this whole, everything they touch, a stroke of genius or even like madness going on in these lines. I would just dare you to even venture and see what that's like. Memorable. Okay, so we've covered those. You have an interesting touching between Pluto and the moon here, which would be some kind of, you could assume there would be some kind of changes in power relationships here, but it's in the ocean, so we're not going to worry about that. And then we have Saturn. Saturn's a good line for like if you're serious about a career, if you get a job opportunity, um, you know, it depends on who you talk to, I guess. I feel like it means like, okay, I need to work hard at something, but there's a great reward for my efforts. It's not going to be for nothing. I'm going to achieve something great if I'm willing to work for it. So Saturn just can kind of sometimes feel like, all work and no fun. But if you're really calculating about why you're choosing to be on a Saturn line, then you can really seize the opportunity to work hard now and get your benefits from it. Versus if you don't know your whole life, you're sitting on a Saturn line and you have no real clear goal. You just feel like you've been working hard and you don't know why. Like those are two different mind frames. If you're going to be on a Saturn line, I think you need to know you're on a Saturn line. Um, so you had mentioned something about India and Egypt. So I wanted to take a moment to pull over here. We have India here. We talked about your Mars line. So some areas of Mars lines that are worth noting. Mars can be ambitious. What is your natal Mars is in Virgo, so that's not a highly volatile situation anyways. Mars is our drive, and when you have an Earth Mars, I don't take you as being a really hot-headed or super impulsive person. And your Mars energy is is important when it comes to like how dangerous is this gonna be. So for you with the Virgo Mars, you might be a little bit more impulsive, but you're not going to be so brash that something is going to be highly more dangerous for you. There's just like the hot-headed tendencies or other people being aggressive towards you, or maybe you're not thinking twice about should you or should you not. But the only part of this I don't love is that your Pluto is also talking here because Mars for me is a personal planet, so it's less likely about people being aggressive towards you. It's about you starting something with them. And I just think I say that a little cautiously for you because your Mars is in your seventh house. So you're always going to have to be a little bit more careful about Mars, but still it's in Virgo. But when you have this Pluto playing too, now I'm just like, okay, well, now we have the outer forces of, power and control talking to the planet of war. So you see how that might not get along really great. And in a foreign country. I don't love that. That makes me think that that's not somewhere that I would recommend going because you probably don't need to face a lot of that as a, you know, visitor. So stay away from up here. And then if you need to visit India, your Venus line does run through it. So maybe we can find a happy spot somewhere in here on your Venus line. But then Venus and Pluto talk, and I think, well, I don't not like that. Sometimes Venus and Pluto have a really steamy conversation. That can be like soulmate stuff. But depending on, is it a healthy situation? Are you really in a intimate, like soul binding intimacy, or is someone taking advantage of somebody else's power and lack of power? And that can get tricky, but it's a very intense place for you. I could see why a Scorpio energy person, MC, and you have a few planets. You have Pluto in Scorpio, you have Venus in Scorpio, and you have your North Node in Scorpio, and your MCs in Scorpio. So there is this intensity to you that really comes alive here. And it is an exact touch on this city I don't know how to pronounce, and this other one. So, and all the way down, it gets wider here. Kanpur and all the way through, all the way down here. So there's a lot of transformative energy going through here. And look how it kind of separates. It kind of leaves Mars and sits more with Venus. So it's spicy and it's memorable, and you might really feel this transformation of how you're able to show up in partnerships and maybe what you're looking for in partnerships, and being given a gift of like experiencing a deeper love. Um, I like that. And now we're talking personally here. So I took away the ascendant and they disappeared. So Mars stayed. So Mars is the MC here. So maybe don't go there for like career aspirations. Maybe go there because you're looking for personality development, personal discoveries, enjoying who you are, and taking a moment to reflect on what that means for who you are and how you're spending time to express the love inside of yourself to others and an appreciation for where you're going. So, yeah, I like that more now. So if you go to India, I'll be on board for that. You have the North Node again calling you, another opportunity. How much you're going to travel the world, you know, depends on a lot of things. But there's a lot of energy here. So it's interesting that you said India because I see that. You're 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 not saying that just for no reason. So that's interesting here. Now let's go to Egypt. Let's see. Trying to see what line is that one. There's your part of fortune. That's going through Europe, then into Africa. So part of fortune is not a real luminary or planet. It's just a calculated point between Sun, Moon, Jupiter, maybe. I might be wrong about that, forgive me. But it's a calculated point on where your good luck would be based on the other points, other major players in your chart. So then the same thing can be reflected in this graph or this map. So it would say, where do you have luck? could be in northern Africa all the way through. I'm not sure if that's something that's interesting to you. But then we do have a line that runs through Cairo in Egypt. But I believe that is, yeah, that's your IC. So you could feel like a little bit at home in Egypt. I wonder if you have any past life history there. Right, yeah, I'm right through Cairo here to support this. IC was a very personal, nostalgic feeling almost. So that it runs right through is significant. You might have some type of Egyptian connection that is worth being explored. I don't know that that means that there's a future there, but there's something about the history of it that makes you feel connected to yourself and your roots. So that sounds very interesting to me. That would be a place worth exploring and see, do I have like this spiritual connection? Am I perceiving some energy from a past life that I'm not conscious of, but my spirit is? And let's see here, because I want to see, I'm trying to see a symbol here for the planet because I thought it looked like the sun, but it's saying the sun's over there. So that's not it. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't the sun on your IC, but it's just a IC line, I believe. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So it's not the sun. I was going to say that if it's the sun on a sun on the IC line is sometimes an indicator like you should like retire there because you'll feel like it is like home and in a mature state of the sun. It actually is a nice place to relocate to, but that's not what that's saying. So, then we have our Chiron line. So we learn a lot here. Sometimes we make peace of it, but we experience pain. So if you are going to travel on this line, if you're planning a trip to Rome, you might want to keep in mind that it might be more emotionally heavy than you signed up for. So you want to be cautious of any trips that touch on Chiron because you might feel the emotional baggage of that, and it's not really a line I would recommend living on unless you are in a place where you feel like you're more healed than wounded and you're ready to give back on that line. So if you come from some type of trauma and you feel like you've healed and you are called to heal others in that area, then that can be a higher expression of that. But sometimes it can be a trigger for old wounds or it can be where you assume some. So it would not be someplace that I would want to stay on for long. Interesting, though, that your part of fortune gets very close to it. So would that you to change your mind? Would you get a little bit more willing because you have a chance to have good fortune and maybe opportunities on this line, but you might have to get closer to some old wounds or feelings of earlier trauma and really ask yourself if you're healed or work through that to then break through to this fortunate piece. They might work together in your chart here. Let's see. Chiron and Art of Fortune don't seem to me they're opposing each other in your natal chart. So they are talking. There is a tendency to feel like we're either hurting or we're having a good fortune, and they can't be at the same time. But, the opposition's asking you to find a balance here, to realize that maybe the pain of our story is also part of what brings us to good fortune in the future. So maybe that is a good opportunity for you to see that geographically. All right. Let's see if you're coming to America. If you plan on coming to America one day, your sun line runs through the good old USA. Come visit us on the East Coast or up through Canada. So in the sun line, we feel really like aligned with our purpose, our path, our confidence, and our vitality feels like, we're really shining our light in our life. So you become more of a focal point here. It's less about other people, it's more about yourself, what you're able to do and what you're doing for yourself to make your way in this life. So there's a lot of opportunities for independence and for showing yourself who you are to yourself and making your own decisions. And, in capitalist America, that's interesting to me because that's, a lot of the theme over here anyway. But it gives you a chance to really like feel like you are capable of many things. So that's a nice line to be on in your own life. If you can live on the sun line, you are in charge of your own fate a lot more than on other lines. It's not about luck or other people's power or your feelings. It's about you really being able to do what you need to do for you and showing up for yourself every day and having real like main character energy in your story. So that is something worth experiencing, I would think. You also have a part of fortune running through America over here. So if you can get the two together, the sun and the part of fortune, you make your own magic happen in Virginia and North Carolina, America. So if this is my chart, I already live in America. I would definitely be curious to check that out. And the moon line is an interesting line. There's a lot of change on this line. You can feel, so this is also your MC icy line. So you can just feel like either you have a home, but you move a lot on your moon line, or you feel like emotionally connected to the people on this line, but maybe they're in and out of your life more. But wherever you go and the connections you make on this line, you feel very deeply about. So let's see, do we have another Jupiter or Venus over here? Mm-mm. You have a Saturn line here. You could come here and make a career name for yourself in Minneapolis. The work hard for a purpose, in Saturn. The budget line, the being an adult, responsibilities, but security and steadfastness and purpose and integrity. These are all the gifts that Saturn bring too. And then you do have your Venus line running all the way down the west coast of California. So this would be a wonderful place to vacation for you if you are able to. LA, San Jose, Fresno, Tijuana, San Diego. Can't really go wrong on the west coast of California. And it looks like you would possibly really enjoy yourself and find that, all the right experiences and a real sense of peace and joy and harmony with whoever you're with or meeting somebody in this situation. On your Venus line, you can find love. You either can bring up love and feel in love, or you can meet somebody on this line. So you might, you could find a person who you feel like you romantically connect with in California, USA. Just bring money for that one because California is kind of pricey. And then you have Jupiter coming across too. So I would say, what's up here? You have a lot of Canadian, West Coast Island Canadian, Jupiter, and Venus action here. So Venus and Jupiter cross in these little islands off of Canada. So this is where you need to go. I would figure out what this is and plan a trip there. I've actually been over here and it is very beautiful. Your Black Lilith runs through that though, so you might not love Seattle as much as I did. My Venus line runs through Seattle, but your Black Lilith does. And that's not always the most comfortable place because your Black Lilith can be a misunderstood and you can feel like an outcast sometimes and like you're being, what you need to feel loved is being held against you. So that's not the line that you really want to be on. But this over here where Jupiter and Venus intersect on these islands, if people inhabit that, I'm not sure. I don't see any like super like named places. But Whitehorse, I don't know what that is. Is that Alaska? I guess that's still Canada. But there's like a lot of action going on over here. So you got Venus, you got Jupiter all the way in Alaska. And this might just be like not something that you're wanting to do. I can't imagine somebody would leave Australia to come to Alaska, but that's a really fortunate place for you. Where Venus and Jupiter come together is ease, good fortune, and just good times. So, and then it comes all the way these two Venus and Jupiter lines, really the west coast of the United States. And it runs through your ascendant. So Jupiter touching the ascendant is always a really good experience. You really attract people to you, and you have this like generosity about you, and you really feel like alive and a lot of gratitude in your situation. So all of the West Coast of California into Nevada, down into Mexico even would be a really great place for you to come visit. Portland, Oregon is beautiful. So we'll end on that takeaway here. Come to California at your earliest convenience. But I know that's a lot to go over the whole world, and I was kind of general. So let me know if there's something else you want to know, or you want me to go back, or you had a specific question. But yeah, thanks so much. This was fun. I hope you got something out of it. Take care.